They threw her into the snow to die. The Alpha King rejected her in front of the entire kingdom and called her a murderer. Broken and freezing, she heard tiny cries beneath the ice. There she found 9 abandoned wolf pups. She saved them all. But she had no idea that the last pup carried a sacred silver mark. He was not an ordinary child. He was the Alpha King's lost heir. And the moment she carried him away from the storm, a royal stone inside the palace burst into light. The dead prince was alive. The woman the king had condemned to death had just become the protector of his only son. Now the kingdom wants the child dead. The Alpha King wants answers. And when the rejected Omega returns years later with 9 extraordinary children, one question will change everything. Why does one little boy look exactly like the king? The first thing Elara felt was the cold. It bit into her knees and climbed through her bones like ice water. Snow covered the palace courtyard. Endless, merciless. A crowd had gathered around her. Warriors, servants, nobles. No one spoke. No one helped. Everyone watched. Elara lifted her trembling hands. They were stained with blood. The blood of the Queen Mother. Her heart hammered inside her chest. This cannot be happening. A heavy pair of boots stopped in front of her. She looked up. Alpha King Kale Draven stood before her. Powerful. His black cloak moved in the winter wind like dark wings. Golden eyes stared down at her. There had once been warmth in those eyes. Tonight there was none. Only ice. Only anger. Elara swallowed hard. "My king," she whispered. "I did not poison her." Silence. The doors of the palace stood open behind him. Inside the great hall, servants were crying. The Queen Mother was dead. And somehow everyone believed Elara had killed her. A noble woman stepped forward. Lady Celine Voss. Beautiful. Perfect. A small sad smile touched her lips. "I saw her myself," Celine said softly. She entered the Queen Mother's chamber carrying the royal medicine. A murmur spread through the crowd. Elara turned to her in disbelief. "That is not true." Celine lowered her eyes. "I wish it were not." Another voice rose. The medicine bottle was found in her room. She was jealous of the Queen Mother. She wanted power. Each accusation struck like a stone. Elara could barely breathe. Mo. Someone had done this. Someone had planned it. She looked back at Kale. He would believe her. He had to. They were mates. Fated by the moon goddess herself. She had loved him from the moment their eyes first met. And though he rarely showed affection, there had been moments. Small moments. But smile. Promise. She had believed they meant something. "Kale," she whispered. The sound of his name made several people gasp. She did not care. Tears filled her eyes. "You know me. You know I would never harm your mother." For one brief moment something flickered across his face. Then it disappeared. The Alpha King's jaw hardened. "The evidence says otherwise." The words struck harder than any blade. Elara stared at him. "You believe them?" He did not answer. Snowflakes landed in her hair. The world seemed suddenly very quiet. Then Kale spoke. "Elara Frost. You stand accused of stealing royal medicine and murdering the Queen Mother." Her body trembled. "I am innocent." His golden eyes never left hers. "You have brought disgrace upon this kingdom." A tear rolled down her cheek. "Please." He took one step closer. "And destroyed her world. I reject you as my mate." The air vanished from her lungs. Mo. A cry escaped her lips. Pain exploded through her chest. It felt as if invisible claws had ripped through her soul. She fell forward onto the snow. The bond. The sacred bond. Breaking. People looked away. Some smiled. Some looked satisfied. Nobody came to her. Elara pressed her hand over her heart. She could not breathe. She could not think. Kale's voice came again. "From this moment you are banished from Moonclaw territory." She lifted her face toward him. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You are making a mistake." Silence. "Please look at me." He did. And somehow that hurt even more. Because there was pain in his eyes. Pain and regret. But he did not take back his words. He did not save her. 2 guards stepped forward. They grabbed her arms. She fought them. Kale, please. Nothing. You cannot do this. Nothing. I loved you. A shadow crossed his face. For a heartbeat she thought he might stop them. He did not. The guards dragged her across the courtyard. Her knees left red marks in the snow. The palace gates opened. The winter storm beyond looked like a living beast. The guards threw her outside. She landed hard. The gates slammed shut. The sound echoed through the mountains. Elara lay there, alone. The storm swallowed everything. She slowly pushed herself up. Snow fell harder now. The wind screamed through the trees. She looked back. The palace lights glowed in the distance. Or what she once believed was home. Now it looked like a stranger. Prison. Grave. Her tears froze on her skin. The mating bond still ached inside her chest. Each breath hurt. She began to walk. 1 step. Then another. The cold grew worse. Darkness crept over the forest. Her body weakened. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. She no longer knew. At last her legs gave out. She collapsed beside an old pine tree. This is how I die. The thought came quietly. No anger. No fear. Only sadness. Then she heard it. Tiny sound. A whimper. Elara lifted her head. Nothing. Then again. Cry. Weak. Desperate. She frowned. Another cry answered. Then another. There were several of them. Somewhere nearby. She forced herself to stand. The sound came from deeper in the forest. The snow reached her knees. Branches clawed at her cloak. Still she followed the cries. A strange feeling stirred inside her. At the foot of a frozen hill she found a narrow opening hidden beneath the snow. Cave. The crying came from inside. Elara stepped forward. Cold air rushed out. She knelt and pushed aside the ice. And froze. Inside the cave lay 9 tiny wolf pups. Curled together. Shivering. Barely alive. One of them was not moving at all. Its silver fur was covered in frost. Its little body looked completely frozen. Elara's heart broke. Oh no! She crawled inside and gathered the nearest pup into her arms. Then another. And another. They were so small. So helpless. The silver pup remained still. She picked him up carefully. His body was ice cold. Too cold. She held him against her chest. Please, she whispered. Do not leave this world. For a long moment nothing happened. Then suddenly the little pup opened his eyes. They glowed like molten gold. And on his forehead a silver crescent mark began to shine. Elara stared in shock. At that exact moment far away inside the royal palace a sacred crystal exploded with light. And Alpha King Kale Draven rose from his throne with horror in his eyes. Because the mark belonged to only one wolf in the kingdom. The heir everyone believed had died 6 years ago. The lost prince was alive. The little silver pup stared at Elara with glowing golden eyes. For one strange moment the storm outside seemed to disappear. The cave became silent. The tiny creature in her hands was trembling. Then he let out a weak cry and pressed his small nose against her chest. Something inside Elara melted. She forgot her pain. Forgot the rejection. Forgot the palace. Right now these little lives needed her. And she could not abandon them. She gathered all 9 pups into her cloak and held them close. Their tiny bodies were freezing. If she stayed here much longer they would all die. Including her. She rose to her feet and stepped out of the cave. The wind hit her like a wall. Snow whipped across her face. The forest had become darker. The moon hid behind heavy clouds. Elara looked around desperately. There had to be somewhere safe. Somewhere warm. One of the pups whimpered. Another shivered violently. She tightened her hold. You are not dying tonight, she whispered. Then she remembered something. Far beyond the northern ridge lived an old healer. A A strange man named Rowan. People called him a hermit. Others called him a madman. But years ago, when Ilara had fallen sick as a child, her mother had taken her to him. He had saved her. The cottage was far away. Too far. But it was her only chance. She began to walk. Step after step. The snow reached her ankles. Then her knees. The pups slept against her chest. The silver one remained awake. His golden eyes never left her face. "You are a brave little thing," she said softly. The pup blinked. A strange warmth spread through her fingers. She frowned. For a second she thought she saw a silver light around him. Then it vanished. The storm grew worse. Hours seemed to pass. Her legs burned. Her hands had gone numb. She almost fell twice. Finally a small light appeared through the trees. Cottage. Smoke rose from the chimney. Ilara nearly cried. She stumbled toward the door and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. The door suddenly opened. An old man with long white hair stared at her. His eyes widened. "Ilara!" "Dissuade. Please help them." The old healer looked down. He saw the pups. Then his face changed. Without another word he stepped aside. "Come in quickly." Warm air wrapped around her. The smell of burning wood filled the room. Ilara fell to her knees beside the fireplace. Rowan immediately placed blankets around the pups. One by one he examined them. "They are badly frozen," he murmured. "But they are alive." Relief flooded her chest. Then he reached for the silver pup. The moment he touched him he froze. His hand trembled. "No." The old man looked closer. "No. This cannot be." Ilara frowned. "What is it?" Rowan slowly lifted the tiny paw. Beneath the fur was the same silver crescent mark. The old healer went pale. He looked at Ilara, then back at the pup. Then he whispered words that made no sense. "The prince lives." A chill ran through her. "What prince?" The old man looked as though he had seen a ghost. He gently placed the pup on the blanket. 6 years ago the kingdom had mourned the death of the Alpha King's only son. The little prince had disappeared during a fire in the northern palace. His body was never found. Everyone believed he died. Rowan stared at the silver pup. "But only the royal bloodline carries this mark." Ilara looked at the sleeping creature. The Alpha King's son. The lost prince. Well, that was impossible. She had found him buried beneath the snow. How could a royal heir end up alone in a frozen cave? "Are you certain?" she asked. The old man nodded slowly. "I have seen this mark only once before." Silence filled the room. The fire crackled softly. Then the silver pup opened his eyes again. He looked directly at Rowan. The old healer's face turned even paler. "He remembers." "What?" "The eyes of royal wolves are different. They remember things long before ordinary pups do." Ilara shook her head. Nothing made sense. Why would someone leave a prince to die? Who would do something so cruel? Suddenly a loud howl echoed outside. Then another. Rowan moved quickly toward the window. His face hardened. Riders. Dark figures were moving through the snow. At least 10 of them. "They found us." Ilara stood up. "Who?" The old healer turned. "The people who wanted this child dead." Fear spread through her body. The riders stopped outside the cottage. A voice called from the darkness. "Open the door." Nobody moved. The voice came again. "We know the child is inside." The room went silent. Ilara looked down at the pups. The silver one had awakened. He was watching the door. Another knock came. This time harder. The windows shook. Rowan grabbed an old sword hanging above the fireplace. "You must leave." Her eyes widened. "There is nowhere to go. There is a hidden path behind the cottage. It leads into the mountains." "And you?" The old man smiled sadly. "I have lived a long life." "No. You must protect the children." The words hit her like a wave. Protect them. No one had protected her. No one had saved her. But now 9 tiny lives depended on her. The door shook violently. Would crack. A deep voice thundered outside. Break it down. The pups began to whimper. Elara wrapped them in blankets. Rowan opened a small wooden door behind the fireplace. A narrow tunnel disappeared into darkness. Hurry! She looked at him. Fear filled her eyes. The old man gently touched her shoulder. You were sent to find them. I do not understand any of this. You will. Another crash. The front door splintered. Men shouted outside. Rowan pushed her toward the tunnel. Go! Tears burned in her eyes. You saved me once. And now you will save them. She nodded. Then she stepped into the darkness. Behind her she heard the hidden door close. She hurried through the tunnel. The pups slept against her chest. Only the silver one remained awake. Suddenly he lifted his head. Then he did something impossible. In a tiny voice that barely sounded like a whisper he spoke one word. Mama. Elara stopped breathing. She looked down at him in shock. The little prince stared into her eyes. Then he curled against her heart and fell asleep. Far behind her the cottage door burst open. A man's furious voice echoed through the night. Find the child. Then another voice asked a terrifying question. And what about the woman? The answer came like ice. Kill her too. The tunnel seemed endless. Cold stone walls surrounded Elara on both sides. She could barely see. The only sound was her breathing and the soft cries of the pups in her arms. But one sound refused to leave her mind. Mama. The silver pup had called her Mama. It was impossible. He was only a child. Tiny wolf. And yet she had heard it clearly. She looked down at him. He slept peacefully against her chest. His silver fur glowed faintly in the darkness. Who are you, little prince? And why do I feel as if I have known you forever? A loud crash echoed from somewhere behind her. The cottage. The assassins had entered. Her heart jumped. She hurried forward. The tunnel finally opened into the forest on the other side of the mountain. The storm had weakened. Moonlight spilled across the snow. The world looked silver, beautiful, and dangerous. Elara looked back. Smoke was rising into the sky. Her breath caught. The cottage was burning. Tears filled her eyes. Rowan. The old healer had given her a chance to live. And now he was paying the price. She wanted to run back. To help him. But the pups stirred in her arms. Well, she had promised. Protect them. She turned away from the flames and disappeared into the forest. The journey lasted 3 days. 3 days of snow and hunger. 3 days of hiding. She slept beneath trees. She drank from frozen streams. She shared every piece of food she found with the pups. Somehow they survived. And slowly something strange began to happen. The pups grew. Not like ordinary wolves. Every morning they seemed a little bigger. A little stronger. The silver pup changed the most. His eyes became brighter. His movements became faster. And every time Elara was sad he would crawl into her lap and rest his head against her hand. As though he understood her pain. On the 4th morning she found a hidden valley. Tall mountains surrounded it. A river flowed through the center. Wildflowers covered the ground despite the winter. It felt untouched. Secret Heir. For the first time in days Elara smiled. This will be our home. The pups barked happily. Even the silver one wagged his tiny tail. There was an old abandoned cabin beside the river. Its roof was broken. Its windows shattered. But it still stood. Together they made it their shelter. Elara cleaned the rooms. She repaired the fireplace. She gathered wood. Every night she slept beside the pups to keep them warm. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Winter slowly gave way to spring. The valley changed. Green grass appeared. Flowers bloomed. The river sparkled beneath the sunlight. And the pups continued to grow. One evening Elara sat outside the cabin. The silver pup climbed into her lap. He was no longer tiny. He looked almost like a young wolf now. You are growing too fast. He looked at her with his golden eyes. Then suddenly his body began to glow. Lara froze. Silver light surrounded him. The other pups gathered around. The light grew brighter. Then it disappeared. In its place sat a little boy. A boy with silver hair and golden eyes. Lara could not breathe. The child looked up at her, then smiled. "Mama!" She nearly fell backward. The little boy wrapped his arms around her neck. "I am hungry." Lara stared at him. "Child." The pup had become a child. Then another flash of light filled the yard. One by one the other pups transformed too. Boys and girls. Children. All of them around the same age. All of them smiling at her. One little girl held up her hands. "Mama." Another child ran toward her. "Mama." The world stopped. 9 children stood before her. Tears suddenly filled her eyes. She did not know why. Perhaps because she had lost everything. And somehow the moon goddess had given her something new. Family. She opened her arms. The children rushed toward her. Their laughter filled the valley. For the first time since her rejection she laughed too. That night they sat around the fire. The silver-haired boy rested against her shoulder. "What is your name?" she asked softly. The child frowned. "I do not know." "You remember nothing." He thought for a long moment. Then his face became sad. "I remember fire." Silence. "I remember someone carrying me." His small hands trembled. "And I remember a lady." "What lady?" She had red lips and cold eyes. Lara listened carefully. The child looked into the fire. "She said I had to disappear." A chill ran through her. Then he whispered the last thing he remembered. "She tried to kill me." The room became silent. Lara wrapped her arms around him. "No one will hurt you again." The boy looked up at her. "You promise?" "I promise." He smiled. Then he closed his eyes and fell asleep against her. Months passed. The children called her Mama every day. She taught them to read. She taught them to fish. She taught them kindness. And they filled the empty places in her heart. But not every wound healed. At night she still dreamed of the palace. She still heard Kale's voice. "I reject you." She would wake in tears. Then the silver-haired boy would appear beside her bed. He never asked questions. He would simply take her hand. And somehow the pain became easier to bear. One morning she discovered something strange. She had cut her hand while chopping wood. Blood covered her fingers. Before her eyes the wound disappeared. Healed. She stared at her skin. Then she tried again. The same thing happened. A silver light appeared around her hand. The cut vanished. The children saw it too. The little girl with dark curls gasped. "Mama has magic." Lara looked at her hands in confusion. She had never possessed magic before. Why now? That evening she walked to the river. The moon reflected on the water. Suddenly she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. An old man stood there. His white hair moved in the wind. Ilara's eyes widened. "Rowan." The old healer smiled. "You look surprised." She ran toward him. "You are alive." He laughed softly. "It will take more than a few assassins to kill me." Tears filled her eyes. She embraced him. Then she stepped back. "There is so much I do not understand." The old man looked toward the cabin where the children slept. "I know." He turned back to her. "And the time has finally come for you to learn the truth." He reached into his cloak and pulled out a silver necklace. A crescent moon was carved into its center. The moment Lara touched it, a strange warmth spread through her body. Rowan looked directly into her eyes. "You are not an ordinary Omega." The wind suddenly grew still. "You were hidden for a reason." Her heart began to pound. "What reason?" The old healer took a slow breath. Then he spoke words that changed everything. "You are the lost princess of the Silver Moon Kingdom." The world seemed to stop. The river continued to flow. The moon still shone above the valley. But Lara heard nothing. She could only stare at Rowan. The lost princess. The words sounded impossible. She laughed softly. Not because it was funny. 'Cause it could not be true. I think you have mistaken me for someone else. The old healer did not smile. You have your mother's eyes. The laughter died on her lips. You knew my mother. I knew your real mother. A cold wind passed through the valley. Ilara's fingers tightened around the silver necklace. My parents died when I was young. They were not your true parents. Her breath caught. The world she knew was breaking apart again. Rowan slowly sat on a large stone beside the river. There was once a kingdom called Silver Moon. It stood beyond the northern mountains, and its royal family possessed powerful healing gifts. Ilara listened in silence. The kingdom fell many years ago. Enemies attacked it. The king and queen disappeared. Their only daughter vanished the same night. He looked directly into her eyes. You. She shook her head. No. The child was hidden to protect her. No. She was raised by another family and never learned who she really was. No. Tears filled her eyes. You are lying. Rowan's face softened. I wish I were. The necklace in her hand suddenly grew warm. A silver light appeared around it. The light spread across her fingers. Then her chest. Memories flashed before her eyes. A woman with silver hair smiling. A man lifting her into his arms. A palace covered in moonlight. Lullaby. Voice. Protect our daughter. The vision vanished. Lara gasped. She nearly fell. Rowan caught her. She looked up at him with trembling eyes. I saw them. The old healer nodded slowly. They were your parents. A tear rolled down her cheek. Everything she believed about herself had changed. She was not simply an abandoned Omega. She was not weak. She was not nothing. She carried royal blood. The thought frightened her. Why tell me now? Because your powers have awakened. She looked at her hands. The silver light appeared again. Beautiful. What am I supposed to do with this? Rowan stood. You learn. The next morning her training began. At sunrise Rowan woke her. At noon he tested her. At night he taught her old stories and ancient laws. Days became months. Months became years. The children grew. The valley became their kingdom. The little cabin became a home filled with laughter. And Ilara changed. She learned to heal broken bones with a touch. She learned to grow flowers in frozen ground. She learned to call silver light from the moon itself. Each year she became stronger. And each year she became someone new. The frightened Omega slowly disappeared. In her place stood a woman. Powerful. Unbreakable. One afternoon she stood beside the river. With a simple movement of her hand she caused the water to rise into the air. The children cheered. The silver-haired boy laughed. You did it, Mama. She smiled. The children had changed too. Each possessed special gifts. One could speak to birds. Another could control fire. One could run faster than the wind. And the silver-haired boy was the strongest of all. His name had become Orion. He had chosen it himself after seeing the stars. Now he stood taller. His face had become sharper. And every day he looked more and more like someone else. Kill. Sometimes it frightened her. Sometimes it made her sad. Because no matter how much she tried to forget him, the Alpha King still lived inside her memories. One evening Orion found her sitting alone. The sunset painted the mountains gold. He sat beside her. You are thinking about him again. She looked at him. About who? He smiled. The man in your dreams. Her heart skipped. I do not dream about anyone. Orion laughed softly. You say his name when you sleep. Ilara looked away. The boy's face became serious. Was he cruel to you? She remained silent. Did he make you cry? A long moment passed. Then she nodded. Orion's small hands closed into fists. If I ever meet him, I will protect you. The words were so serious that she smiled. You are supposed to be the child. I know. He leaned against her shoulder. But you protected us. Now it is my turn. Tears suddenly filled her eyes. She wrapped an arm around him. No one had ever protected her. Not even herself. Yet this child would fight the world for her. The sun slowly disappeared. Darkness covered the valley. Then Orion spoke again. Mama. Yes. Who is my father? Her body became still. This question had never come before. She looked at him. Golden eyes watched her carefully. I do not know. But everyone has a father. She swallowed. I found you in the snow. He looked down. I know. Silence settled between them. Then he whispered. I think I remember him. Her heart jumped. You do. Only pieces. She waited. I remember strong arms. He frowned. And a deep voice. The boy touched his chest. When I think about him, my heart hurts. Ilara did not know what to say. She gently touched his hair. One day you will know the truth. Orion nodded. Then he looked toward the stars. I want to meet him. The words struck her like lightning. She stared at him. What? I want to know who he is. The other children suddenly appeared behind them. We do too. We want to see the world. We want to know where we came from. One little girl hugged Ilara. Can we leave the valley one day? The question hung in the air. For 6 years they had lived in peace. Hidden. Far away from danger. But the children were growing. Their questions were growing too. And secrets could not remain buried forever. That night Ilara could not sleep. She stood outside the cabin and looked at the moon. The wind moved through the grass. Then Rowan appeared beside her. They are ready, she sighed. No. The world outside is dangerous. It always will be. She lowered her eyes. If I take them back, someone may try to hurt them. Rowan remained quiet. Then he spoke softly. Orion deserves the truth. She closed her eyes. She knew he was right. The boy deserved answers. All of them did. But going back meant facing the past. Facing the kingdom. Facing the Alpha King. The thought still hurt. Even after all these years. Suddenly a strange feeling passed through her. As though someone far away had spoken her name. She looked toward the south. Toward Moonclaw Kingdom. A cold breeze touched her face. And at that exact moment, hundreds of miles away, an Alpha King stood alone in his dark palace. He held a small silver ribbon in his hand. The ribbon Ilara had once worn in her hair. His golden eyes were filled with regret. Then he whispered words no one had heard him speak in 6 long years. Ilara! At that same moment a servant burst into the throne room. The man fell to his knees. My king! We have found evidence. Kale turned sharply. What evidence? The servant lifted his head. The woman you banished. Silence. Then came the words that changed everything. She may still be alive. The throne room became silent. Not a single person moved. Kale Draven stood like a statue. The servant remained on his knees with his head lowered. The words still echoed through the room. She may still be alive. For 6 years Kale had buried that hope. 6 years of believing the snow had taken her. 6 years of hearing her voice in his dreams. 6 years of regret. Slowly he stepped down from his throne. What did you say? The servant swallowed. A merchant from the northern mountains claims he saw a woman matching her description. Kale's heart pounded. Where? In a hidden valley beyond the frost peaks. The Alpha King did not breathe. A hidden valley. Something inside him awakened. Oh, terrible and beautiful hope. He turned sharply. Prepare my horse. The servant hesitated. My king, there is more. Kale looked back. The merchant said the woman was not alone. A strange feeling passed through him. Continue. He saw children. Silence. How many? The servant frowned. He was not certain. Perhaps 8 or 9. Kale stared at him. Children. Why would Ilara be living with children in the middle of nowhere? The question settled deep inside him. Before he could speak, another voice echoed through the hall. My king. Lady Selene entered the room. She wore a dark red gown and a perfect smile. For years she had remained at his side. For years she had tried to become his queen, yet he had never accepted. His heart had died the night he rejected Elara. Selene stopped beside him. I heard the news. Her voice was soft, concerned. Perfect. It is only a rumor. Cale looked at her. Perhaps. She touched his arm gently. You have suffered enough. You should not chase ghosts. The words were kind, but something in her eyes changed for the briefest moment. Fear. Then it disappeared. Cale noticed. A cold feeling settled inside him. Leave us. My king. I said leave. For the first time in years her smile faltered. She bowed and walked away. But as she turned her hands had become fists. Cale watched her go. Then he looked at the servant again. Bring me everything you know about the night my mother died. The servant blinked. My king. Everything. The man hurried away. Cale remained alone. Outside the snow had begun to fall again. Winter always returned. And every winter reminded him of her. A memory suddenly came. Elara laughing in the palace garden. Snow in her hair. Sunlight in her blue eyes. He had never seen anyone so alive. He closed his eyes. The pain remained. He remembered the night of the rejection. The tears on her face. The way she had looked at him. Broken. Destroyed. She had called his name. Begged him to believe her. And he had turned away. His chest tightened. He had told himself it was necessary. Because days before the Queen Mother's death a letter had arrived. Threat. Kill the Omega or she dies. His mother had shown him the letter herself. Someone wanted Elara dead. Someone powerful. The Queen Mother had begged him to send Elara away. To make everyone believe he no longer cared for her. It is the only way to save her. Those had been her final words. Then she died. And before he could protect Elara she had been accused of murder. Everything had happened too quickly. Too perfectly. As though someone had planned every step. A knock sounded. The servant returned carrying an old wooden box. My king. These were your mother's belongings. Cale took the box. Inside lay letters and documents. He opened them slowly. Then his eyes stopped. A small folded paper rested at the bottom. He had never seen it before. He unfolded it. The handwriting belonged to his mother. If you are reading this, then I am already gone. His breathing stopped. There is a traitor in the palace. Trust no one. Especially not Lady Selene. Cale went completely still. His blood turned cold. The letter trembled in his hand. Mo. He continued reading. She knows about the prince. She knows about Elara. I fear she plans to remove everyone who stands between her and the throne. If anything happens to me, protect them. Protect your mate. The letter slipped from his fingers. The room spun. Selene. All these years. A sudden memory flashed through his mind. The accusations. The missing medicine. The tears in Selene's eyes. The way she had spoken against Elara. His face darkened. Rage exploded inside him. The doors burst open. A guard hurried inside. My king. Where is Lady Selene? The man looked confused. She left the palace an hour ago. Cale's golden eyes blazed. Bring her back. The guard swallowed. There is one more thing. What? We found one of her servants trying to escape. Cale's voice became deadly calm. Bring him to me. Moments later a young servant was dragged into the hall. He fell to his knees shaking. Cale stepped forward. Tell me the truth. The servant began to cry. I never wanted to hurt anyone. What truth? It was Lady Selene. Silence. She stole the royal medicine. Cale's heart pounded. She placed it in Lady Elara's room. Every person in the hall froze. The servant continued to sob. And she poisoned the Queen Mother. The world seemed to stop. For 6 years. 6 long years. He had believed Ilara was guilty. For 6 years she had suffered because of him. A terrible sound escaped his throat. Half growl, half pain. He turned away. His hands shook. The servant's voice trembled. "There is more." Cale looked back. "Speak." Lady Celine said the prince should have died in the fire. The room exploded into silence. Cale's eyes widened. "What did you say?" The servant collapsed completely. "She said the royal child escaped and had to be found before anyone learned the truth." Cale could no longer breathe. The air stone. The light 6 years ago. The rumors of children in the mountains. Everything suddenly connected. The lost prince. Alive. Somewhere. A fierce hope burned inside him. If Ilara lived, then perhaps the child lived too. And if the child lived, then everything could still be saved. He grabbed his cloak. The guards looked at him. "My king, where are you going?" Cale's voice shook with emotion. "I am bringing them home." Far away beyond the mountains, Ilara stood outside her cabin. The children played beside the river. Their laughter filled the air. Then Orion suddenly stopped. He looked toward the south. His face became pale. "Mama." He turned. "What is it?" The boy touched his chest. His golden eyes filled with confusion. "I feel something." "What do you mean?" He looked at her slowly. Then he whispered words that made her heart stop. "I think my father is coming." The valley suddenly felt smaller. The wind stopped. Even the birds became silent. Ilara looked at Orion. The boy still had his hand pressed against his chest. His face had gone pale. "What do you mean your father is coming?" He shook his head slowly. "I do not know." He looked toward the mountains. "But I can feel him." A strange fear passed through Ilara. 4 years she had hidden from the world. For years she had convinced herself that the past could never find her. Now it was standing at her door. The other children gathered around Orion. One of the little girls grabbed his hand. "Are you sick?" He shook his head. "No." Then he smiled softly. "I think someone important is close." Before Ilara could speak, Rowan appeared from the forest. His expression was serious. "He is here." Her heart stopped. "Who?" The old healer looked directly into her eyes. "Alpha King Cale Draven." Silence. The world seemed to disappear around her. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. Sometimes she screamed at him. Sometimes she walked away. Sometimes she forgave him. But now that it was real, she could not move. One of the children looked confused. "Who is Cale?" Nobody answered. Then the sound came. Of many of them. The children turned toward the mountain path. A group of riders appeared between the trees. Black horses, black cloaks. And at the front rode a man with dark hair and golden eyes. 6 years had changed him. There were faint lines on his face now. Pain lived in his eyes. The proud king looked tired, broken. He saw the cabin. Then he saw the children. Then he saw her. His horse stopped. For a long moment nobody breathed. Ilara stood frozen. The white dress she wore moved softly in the wind. Her silver blonde hair shone beneath the sun. She looked stronger than before. More beautiful. Like a queen. Cale stared at her as if she were a dream. Then he whispered one word. "Ilara." Her name broke inside him. His eyes filled with emotion. She was alive. She had survived. Against all reason. Against all hope. He slowly climbed down from his horse. The soldiers behind him remained silent. Nobody dared move. Cale took one step forward. Then another. He looked at her face as if trying to remember every detail. "I thought you were dead." His voice trembled. She did not answer. "I searched for you." Still nothing. The wind passed between them. Then she finally spoke. "You searched 6 years too late." The words struck him like a blade. Pain flashed across his face. "I know." Her blue eyes hardened. "Do you?" He lowered his head. For the first time in his life the Alpha King looked ashamed. "I was wrong." She laughed softly. but there was no happiness in the sound. Wrong. Her eyes filled with tears. You destroyed my life. Kale's breathing became uneven. I know. You rejected me. I know. You threw me into the snow to die. The words broke something inside him. He could not look away. I know. Silence. The children watched everything. They did not understand. But they knew this meeting mattered. Orion stepped forward. He looked at Kale carefully. Golden eyes met golden eyes. The Alpha King froze. The boy's hair was silver. His face. His eyes. Something about him felt painfully familiar. Kale stared. His heart began to race. The boy looked back with equal curiosity. Then Orion spoke. Are you the man who hurt my mother? The question echoed through the valley. Nobody moved. Kale looked at Ilara. Then at the child. Your mother. Orion nodded. Yes. He stepped in front of Ilara protectively. I do not know who you are. But if you make her cry again, I will fight you. The soldiers behind Kale looked shocked. No child had ever spoken to the Alpha King like that. But Kale barely heard them. He was staring at Orion. The boy's face. The shape of his eyes. The feeling in his chest. A memory flashed through his mind. A tiny baby wrapped in silver blankets. His son. The prince he had buried in his heart. His hands began to shake. What is your name? The boy answered proudly. Orion. Kale swallowed. How old are you? 6. The world stopped. Exactly 6. The same age his son would have been. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He looked at Ilara. She had gone pale. As if she already knew what he was thinking. Kale took another step. Who is this child? Silence. Nobody answered. He looked at Rowan. The old healer remained quiet. Then he looked back at Ilara. Please. The word sounded strange coming from an Alpha King. She closed her eyes. This moment had finally arrived. The truth could no longer hide. Slowly she looked at Orion. The boy looked confused. Then she turned back to Kale. He is one of the children I found in the snow. Kale frowned. In the snow. On the night you banished me. The memory hit him. The glowing air stone. The impossible light. His blood turned cold. He looked at Orion again. The boy's hair moved softly in the wind. Then he noticed it. A small silver mark hidden beneath the child's collar. The crescent moon. Kale stopped breathing. Could not be. Slowly he walked forward. The soldiers looked at each other nervously. Orion did not move. He simply watched the king. Kale knelt before him. His hands trembled. May I? The boy looked at Ilara. She nodded. Carefully Kale moved the child's collar aside. The silver crescent mark shone against his skin. The Alpha King went completely still. His eyes filled with tears. A broken sound escaped his throat. The lost prince. His son. Alive. He looked up at Orion. The boy stared at him curiously. Then Kale whispered. My son. The valley fell silent. Orion blinked. My son. The words came again. Tears rolled down the Alpha King's face. For 6 years he had mourned this child. For 6 years he had believed he failed him. Yet here he was. Alive. Breathing. Looking back at him. Orion looked at Ilara. Then at Kale. Then something strange happened. A memory suddenly flashed through his mind. Strong arms. Deep voice. Warm laughter. His eyes widened. He looked at the man kneeling before him. And without understanding why his heart suddenly hurt. Tears filled his eyes. One word slipped from his lips. Father. The moment the word was spoken, the silver crescent mark burst into light. And far away in the capital city, the royal airstone exploded with brilliant silver fire. The silver light rose into the sky like a second moon. It spread across the valley, across the mountains, across the entire kingdom. Every royal guardian felt it. Every elder felt it. The heir had returned. Kale slowly stood. Tears still shone in his eyes. He looked at Orion as though he feared the boy might disappear. For 6 years he had carried guilt in his heart. For 6 years he had mourned a son who was never truly gone. Now the child stood only a few steps away. Alive. Because of Ilara. The realization struck him deeply. Everything he loved still existed because of the woman he had betrayed. He turned toward her. She stood quietly beneath the trees. The evening light touched her silver hair. She looked like a queen born from moonlight. And he had thrown her into the snow. The shame nearly broke him. "Thank you." The words were soft, barely a whisper. Ilara looked at him. Her expression did not change. "I did not save him for you." Kale lowered his eyes. "I know. I saved him because he was alone." The Alpha King nodded. "That makes what you did even greater." Silence fell again. Then Rowan stepped forward. "The light has already revealed the prince's survival. By tomorrow the entire kingdom will know." Kale's face darkened. "And so will Celine." At the mention of her name something cold passed through Ilara. She remembered Orion's words. A woman with red lips and cold eyes. The same woman who had accused her. The same woman who had stood beside Kale for years. She tried to kill him. Kale looked at her sharply. "You know this." Lara nodded. Orion remembers pieces of that night. The Alpha King's hands became fists. A dangerous growl escaped his throat. At that moment a bird suddenly flew into the valley. It landed on the shoulder of one of the children. The little girl who spoke to birds became pale. "It is afraid." She closed her eyes. Then she gasped. "Riders are coming." Kale immediately turned toward the mountain path. His warriors reached for their swords. The sound came seconds later. Fast. Too fast. A rider burst into the valley. His horse was covered in sweat. The man fell to his knees. "My king! What happened?" The rider looked terrified. "Lady Celine has taken control of the palace." "Silence." "She says the throne belongs to her now." Kale's eyes blazed. The rider continued. "She has gathered soldiers and spread a rumor that a false prince is coming to steal the kingdom." Orion frowned. "A false prince?" The rider looked at him. Then his eyes widened. The silver hair. The golden eyes. The crescent mark. The man immediately lowered his head. "Your Highness." The words stunned the children. Orion stared at him. Nobody had ever called him that before. Kale stepped forward. "How many soldiers stand with her?" "Nearly half the royal guard." The Alpha King looked toward the mountains. It had finally come. Then another sound echoed through the valley. An arrow. It flew from the trees, straight toward Orion. Everything happened at once. Kale moved. He threw himself forward. The arrow struck his shoulder instead. A cry escaped Ilara. The soldiers rushed toward the forest. The children screamed. Kale pulled the arrow free and looked toward the trees. Dark figures were already running away. Assassins. Celine had not waited. She had sent killers. For the prince. For Orion. The little boy stood frozen. His face had gone white. Kale turned toward him. "Are you hurt?" Orion slowly shook his head. The Alpha King dropped to one knee. His shoulder bled heavily. But he ignored it. "You are safe." The boy stared at him. "You protected me." Kale smiled softly. "I always will." Something changed inside Orion. For the first time he saw not a stranger, not a king, but a father. He stepped forward and hugged him. The Alpha King froze. Then he wrapped his arms around the child. His eyes closed. The moment felt like a miracle. Ilara watched them in silence. A strange ache filled her heart. She had spent years protecting Orion. And now she was watching him find the family he had lost. Tears filled her eyes. Suddenly Rowan looked toward her. "You cannot hide anymore." She knew he was right. The truth had already escaped into the world. The prince had returned. Nothing would ever be the same. That night a fire burned in the center of the valley. Everyone sat around it. Nobody spoke. The stars glittered above them. Then Cale stood. He walked toward Elara. She remained by the river. The water reflected the moon. For a while he said nothing. Then he removed the royal crown from his head and placed it on the ground. I do not deserve to wear it. She looked at him. His golden eyes were full of regret. I failed as a king. Silence. I failed as a mate. She said nothing. And I failed as a father. The pain in his voice was real. Broken. I cannot undo what I did. The river flowed softly beside them. But if there is anything left to save, I will spend the rest of my life trying. Elara looked away. The old wounds inside her still hurt. She remembered the snow, the rejection, the loneliness. She remembered crying herself to sleep. Remembered thinking she would die. You cannot give me back those years. His face tightened. I know. You cannot erase that pain. I know. She turned back to him. Then for the first time she saw something she had never expected. The mighty Alpha King was crying. A single tear slid down his face. I never stopped loving you. The words hung between them. She forgot how to breathe. I looked for you in every winter storm. Another tear fell. I spoke to your memory every night. Silence. I thought I had lost everything. His voice broke. Then he whispered. But you were alive. Ilara's heart trembled. Before she could answer, footsteps suddenly echoed behind them. Everyone turned. A woman stood at the edge of the firelight. Her dark red dress moved in the wind. Her lips curved into a smile. Lady Selene. No one had heard her arrive. No one had seen her come. She looked at Orion. Then at Elara. Then she laughed. Cold laugh. You finally found each other. Cale moved in front of Orion. What are you doing here? Selene's eyes glittered. I came to finish what I started. The soldiers drew their swords. But she did not seem afraid. Instead she looked directly at Elara. You still do not know who you really are. The valley became silent. Selene smiled wider. Then she spoke words that froze everyone in place. The lost princess of Silver Moon has finally returned home. The fire crackled softly. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Selene stood at the edge of the clearing with a smile on her lips. The moonlight touched her face and made her look almost beautiful. Almost. But her eyes were cold. Cold as winter ice. Elara stared at her. You know who I am. Selene laughed. Oh, I know exactly who you are. Cale stepped forward. You poisoned my mother. Her smile did not disappear. You finally figured it out. The Alpha King's eyes burned with fury. You framed Elara. Yes. You tried to kill my son. Yes. Every answer came calmly, as though she were discussing the weather. The children moved closer to Elara. Orion's hand slipped into hers. The little boy was trembling. Selene looked at him. You should have died years ago. Cale growled. Terrible sound. The trees seemed to shake. But Selene remained calm. Look at you. She smiled. The mighty Alpha King protecting the very child he once buried. You will pay for what you have done. She laughed again. No. You will. Then she turned toward Elara. Do you know why your kingdom fell? Silence. It fell because of me. Rowan's face darkened. You monster. Selene ignored him. I was a servant in the Silver Moon Kingdom. Her eyes filled with old hatred. They had everything. She looked at Elara. The beautiful king. The kind queen. The perfect little princess. Elara's fingers tightened. I watched them while I had nothing. The smile vanished from Selene's face. So I helped their enemies destroy them. The night became terribly quiet. You betrayed an entire kingdom. Yes. She looked proud. I watched your palace burn. A tear slid down Elara's cheek. And when your parents tried to escape, I took their child. The world stopped. You took me. Selene nodded. I wanted to kill you. Cale looked at Elara in horror. But your mother begged for your life. For the first time sadness crossed Celine's face. She placed this around your neck. She pulled something from her pocket. A small silver ring. Lara gasped. It was the same symbol as her necklace. The queen asked me to save you. Silence. And for one foolish moment I almost did. She closed her fingers around the ring. But then I remembered how much I hated them. Her eyes became hard again. So I abandoned you. Ilara's tears would not stop. Years. So many years without answers. And now the truth stood before her. Celine looked at Kale. The prince was easier. Orion hid behind his father. I simply started a fire. Her smile returned. And when he escaped I took him. Kale's breathing became heavy. You stole my son. I hid him in the mountains. He shrugged. The snow was supposed to finish the job. Then she looked at Ilara. But fate is a strange thing. A cold wind passed through the valley. The rejected Omega found the lost prince. Nobody spoke. The fire snapped. A single spark rose into the sky. Then Kale stepped forward. You confessed to everything. Celine smiled. I know. Then it is over. No. Her eyes glittered. It is only beginning. Suddenly a long horn echoed through the mountains. Then another. Then another. The ground trembled. Kale turned sharply. Torches. Hundreds of them. They appeared on the mountain ridges like rivers of fire. Celine smiled. My army has arrived. The children gasped. Warriors in dark armor poured into the valley. There were hundreds. Perhaps more. Kale's soldiers drew their swords. The odds were impossible. Celine slowly walked backward. The kingdom belongs to me now. She raised her hand. Kill them all. The battle exploded. Arrows flew through the air. Steel clashed. Wolves roared. The peaceful valley became a storm of violence. Kale shifted into his massive black wolf. He leaped into the enemy line. One warrior after another fell before him. The children hurried behind Rowan. But Orion did not move. His eyes burned with anger. They want to hurt Mama. Silver light suddenly burst from his body. Everyone stopped. The crescent mark on his neck glowed brightly. The earth shook. The moon itself seemed brighter. Ilara stared at him. Orion. The boy looked at her. I am not afraid anymore. Then he raised his hand. A wave of silver energy rushed across the valley. Enemy soldiers were thrown backward. Kale looked at his son with amazement. Royal power. Ancient and strong. Celine's smile disappeared. No. Orion stepped forward. You hurt my family. The little prince's eyes shone like stars. And I will protect them. A deep roar echoed from the mountains. Suddenly wolves appeared from the darkness. Hundreds of them. Not Celine's wolves. Different. Silver. They surrounded the valley. At their front stood an old man wearing a crown of moonstones. He looked directly at Ilara. Then he dropped to one knee. Your Majesty. Silence. The silver wolves followed. One by one they knelt. Ilara stared at them in shock. The old man lifted his head. We have searched for our princess for 20 years. Tears filled her eyes. The lost kingdom had found her. Celine stepped backward. Fear finally entered her face. No. The old man stood. The true queen of Silver Moon has returned. A cheer rose through the valley. The silver wolves attacked. The battle changed instantly. Celine's army began to fall. Warriors fled. Others surrendered. Kale returned to human form and stood beside Ilara. You are not alone anymore. She looked at him. For the first time she believed it. A scream suddenly echoed. Celine. She held a dagger. And she was running toward Orion. Everything happened too quickly. Ilara moved. Silver light exploded from her body. She reached Orion just as Celine struck. The dagger pierced her side. Pain tore through her. Orion screamed. Kale roared. Celine smiled wildly. If I cannot have the throne, then none of you will. She raised the dagger again. But before she could strike, a silver wolf crashed into her. The dagger flew away. Celine hit the ground. The old man placed his sword at her throat. It was over. The battle ended. The valley became quiet. Too quiet. Cale turned. And his heart stopped. Elara was falling. Blood stained her dress. She collapsed into his arms. Elara! Her eyes slowly closed. No! Orion began to cry. Mama! Cale held her tightly. Warm blood covered his hands. Panic filled him. Stay with me. Her breathing grew weaker. The moonlight touched her face. Then she whispered something so softly that only he heard it. I am tired. Fear unlike anything he had ever known gripped him. He looked up at the night sky. At the moon. Fate. Everything. And for the first time in his life the Alpha King begged. Please do not take her from me. But Elara's eyes had already closed. The world became very quiet. Cale held Elara in his arms. Her blood covered his hands. Her eyes remained closed. For a terrible moment he could not hear her breathing. The battle was over. The valley was safe. Yet none of it mattered. Not if she left him. Elara! His voice broke. No answer. Orion dropped beside them. Tears streamed down his face. Mama, please wake up. The other children gathered around. Some cried. Some held each other. Even the warriors looked away. No one could bear the sight. Cale pressed his forehead against hers. He had lost her once. He could not lose her again. Not now. Not when fate had finally returned her to him. Please. The word came out as a whisper. Then something strange happened. The silver crescent around Elara's neck began to glow. A soft light spread across her body. The moon above seemed brighter. The wind carried the scent of flowers. The old king of Silver Moon stepped closer. His eyes widened. The royal blessing. Silver light poured from the necklace and wrapped around Elara like flowing water. Her wound slowly closed. The blood disappeared. The torn fabric remained, but her skin healed beneath it. Everyone watched in silence. Then Elara took a deep breath. Cale froze. Her eyelashes trembled. Slowly she opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was his face. The second thing she saw was Orion crying beside her. A weak smile touched her lips. Why are you all crying? Orion threw himself into her arms. The other children followed. The valley exploded with laughter and tears. Cale could only stare. She was alive. She was really alive. For the first time in many years the Alpha King cried openly. Elara looked at him. Their eyes met. So much pain lived between them. So many lost years. Yet there was something else too. Relief. She slowly reached out. Her fingers touched his cheek. You look terrible. A broken laugh escaped him. You almost died. She smiled softly. But I did not. He covered her hand with his. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then Orion looked up. Does this mean we can all go home now? Silence. The question was so innocent. So simple. Yet it carried the weight of the future. The old king stepped forward. The kingdoms are waiting. He bowed before Elara. Your people need their queen. Cale also knelt. The mighty Alpha King lowered his head before the woman he had once rejected. The entire valley became silent. I cannot change the past. His voice was low. But I will spend the rest of my life earning your forgiveness. He lifted his eyes to hers. If you allow it. No one moved. Even the wind seemed to wait. Elara looked at him for a long time. She saw the proud king who had broken her heart. She saw the man who had protected Orion. The man who had searched for her. The man who had cried when he thought she was gone. People could change. Perhaps kings could too. Slowly she held out her hand. Cale looked at it in disbelief. Then he took it. The children cheered. Orion laughed. The other little ones began jumping around the fire. For the first time in years happiness filled the valley. Days later they returned to the capital. The entire kingdom waited outside the palace. Thousands of people filled the streets. When Elara stepped from the carriage, everyone fell silent. The rejected Omega had returned. But she was no longer an Omega in torn clothes. She wore a silver gown. A moonstone crown rested on her head. The children walked beside her. And Orion stood proudly between her and Kale. Then the people began to cheer. Louder and louder. Their voices shook the city. Inside the palace throne room, Lady Selene was brought in chains. She looked smaller somehow. Broken. The proud smile was gone. Kale stood before her. "You stole my son." She remained silent. "You murdered my mother." Still nothing. "You destroyed countless lives." Finally she looked up. "I lost." There was no regret in her voice. Only emptiness. The old king of Silver Moon stepped forward. "For your crimes you will spend the rest of your life alone." Selene laughed softly. Then she looked at Elara. "I should have left you in that burning palace." Elara did not answer. Because hatred no longer lived in her heart. Only peace. The guards took Selene away. Her footsteps slowly disappeared. And with them the darkness of the past. That evening a grand ceremony filled the palace. Candles glowed everywhere. Music echoed through the halls. Orion stood before the throne wearing royal blue. He looked nervous. Kale knelt before his son and placed a small crown on his head. "I name you Crown Prince Orion Draven." The entire hall erupted with applause. Orion looked at his parents. Then he smiled. The little boy who had once slept in a frozen cave had become the heir of a kingdom. Later that night the children ran through the palace gardens laughing. Snowflakes drifted from the sky. The first snow of winter. Elara stood beneath an old tree and watched them. Kale walked toward her. For a while they simply stood together. The silence felt comfortable. Warm. He looked at her. "I never thanked you properly." "For what?" "For saving my son." She smiled. "I think he saved me too." Kale laughed softly. Then his expression became serious. "And you? What about me?" "You saved me." She looked at him in surprise. "I had become a ghost." His eyes softened. "Then you returned." A gentle breeze moved her hair. He reached out and brushed a strand from her face. "Would you give me another chance?" Her heart beat faster. The old pain was still there. But it no longer controlled her. She looked at the man before her. Not the king. Not the alpha. It was Kale. The man she had once loved. And perhaps never truly stopped loving. A soft smile appeared on her lips. "I think we both deserve another chance." Relief flooded his face. He gently pulled her into his arms. She rested her head against his chest. The palace lights glowed around them. The snow continued to fall. Felt like a new beginning. Then Elara suddenly laughed. Kale frowned. "What is it?" She looked up at him. "There is one more surprise." He raised an eyebrow. "What surprise?" She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. First he looked confused. Then his eyes widened. Her smile grew. "I think our family is about to become even bigger." Silence. Absolute silence. Then the Alpha King forgot how to breathe. "You mean?" She nodded. Tears instantly filled his eyes. The great Alpha King laughed and cried at the same time. From the garden Orion shouted. "What happened?" Kale looked toward his son and smiled brighter than the sun. Then he looked back at Elara. The woman he had lost. The woman he had found again. The queen of his heart. And the mother of his future child. Snow fell softly around them as he kissed her forehead. Far above them the moon shone brightly. As if the moon goddess herself was smiling. Because the rejected Omega who once lay alone in the snow had finally found everything she had lost. Family. Kingdom. And a love that had survived even the coldest winter.